A wall of water 100 feet high crashes down with the force of 1,000 freight trains. The ocean transforms into a merciless, roaring beast. For the fishermen aboard the Andrea Gail, this wasn't a scene from a nightmare or a Hollywood movie. It was their terrifying reality. The crew of the Andrea Gail were seasoned fishermen, no strangers to the dangers of the sea. Yet nothing could have prepared them for what they were about to face. What followed was a desperate struggle for survival against impossible odds. The storm unleashed its full fury on Andrea Gail. Communications were lost, and the vessel was left to the mercy of the elements. The crew fought, but the sea was unforgiving. The ocean's wrath was relentless, and for the crew of the Andrea Gail, survival became a race against time. As the storm raged on, every decision, every movement, meant the difference between life and death. But what kind of vessel could endure such a brutal test? The Andrea Gail was a 72-foot commercial fishing boat that was designed specifically for the challenging task of sword fishing in the North Atlantic. The boat was capable of withstanding the rough seas and harsh weather conditions that are common in the fishing grounds off the coast of New England. On what would be her final voyage, the Andrea Gail was captained by Frank William Billy Tyne Jr., a seasoned fisherman known for his skill and determination. Under his command, the vessel was expected to bring back a substantial catch from the Grand Banks, one of the most lucrative fishing grounds in the North Atlantic. As the Andrea Gail made its way to the fishing grounds, the first signs of trouble began to emerge. The boat had already encountered some mechanical issues, which were not uncommon. The crew managed to address these problems, but the modest catch they had so far was less than encouraging. Determined to improve their fortunes, Captain Tyne made the decision to venture further east to the Flemish Cap, a more remote area known for its rich fishing opportunities. This decision would take Andrea Gail into even more perilous waters. As the Andrea Gail headed deeper into the North Atlantic, the weather continued to deteriorate. Reports from other vessels in the area painted a grim picture, with seas growing increasingly rough and the wind picking up speed. The storm that would come to be known as the perfect storm was a rare and deadly combination of three separate weather systems, each contributing to its unprecedented power. The first component was the remnants of Hurricane Grace, a tropical cyclone that had formed in late October and was beginning to lose strength as it moved northward. While Grace was no longer a hurricane by the time it reached the North Atlantic, it still carried a significant amount of moisture and energy, setting the stage for what was to come. The second system was a cold front moving in from the west. As this front collided with the remnants of Hurricane Grace, it began to intensify. This interaction between the warm, moist air from Grace and the cooler, drier air from the cold front created the conditions for a powerful storm to develop. The third and final piece of the puzzle was a high-pressure system over Canada, which acted as a block, preventing the developing storm from moving away from the coast. Instead, the storm was forced to linger over the North Atlantic, growing stronger and more dangerous with each passing hour. The convergence of these three systems created a massive nor'easter, a storm that defied the usual patterns and became far more powerful than anyone could have anticipated. The resulting storm was a meteorological nightmare. Waves were reported to reach heights of up to 100 feet. Winds exceeded 70 miles per hour, whipping the ocean into a frenzy and making navigation nearly impossible. The captain maintained contact with other vessels in the area as well as with the shore. On October 28, 1991, Tyne radioed in, reporting worsening conditions. He described how the storm was intensifying, with waves growing larger by the minute and the winds becoming more violent. The tone in his voice conveyed a sense of mounting concern, though his words remained calm and measured. One of the last recorded communications was with the vessel Hannah Bowden, captained by Linda Greenlaw, a friend and fellow fisherman. Tyne's message was chilling. "She's coming on, boys, and she's coming on strong." They would be the last known contact from Andrea Gail. Shortly after, all communication was lost. Lee. With the storm reaching its peak, the crew of the Andrea Gail found themselves in a desperate battle for survival. While the exact details of what transpired aboard the ship in those final hours will never be known, we can piece together a likely scenario based on what we know about the storm's severity and the capabilities of the vessel. Towering waves would have continuously crashed against the boat. The crew, no doubt, would have been working frantically to keep the ship afloat, adjusting the course, securing equipment, and pumping out water as the storm's fury unleashed its full force. As the storm raged on, the situation likely became increasingly dire. The boat's equipment, including its navigation systems and engines, may have been damaged or lost in the chaos. Flooding could have begun as the hull took on water, making it harder to control the vessel and maintain buoyancy. In such conditions, even the most experienced crew would have struggled to stay in command of their ship. Though we can only speculate, the final moments of Andrea Gail were likely a terrifying ordeal. As the storm reached its most intense, the boat may have been overwhelmed by a particularly massive wave, or perhaps it succumbed to the cumulative damage inflicted over hours of relentless battering. The exact moment when the ship went down remains a mystery, but based on the debris found later, it is believed that the Andrea Gail sank sometime on the night of October 28th or early on October 29th. When Andrea Gail failed to return as scheduled, alarm bells began to ring in Gloucester and among the fishing community. The ship was officially reported missing on October 30th, 1991, prompting the U.S. Coast Guard to launch an extensive search and rescue operation. The search area was vast, covering thousands of square miles of the North Atlantic, from the Grand Banks to the Gulf Stream. The Coast Guard deployed helicopters, planes, and vessels. After several days of intense searching on November 6th, 1991, the Coast Guard found the first pieces of debris from the Andrea Gail. A 406 MHz emergency position indicating radio beacon was located off the coast of Sable Island, northeast of the boat's last known position. This device would have automatically activated if the vessel sank. In the days that followed, more debris was recovered, including fuel drums, pieces of the boat's life raft, and other scattered remnants of the Andrea Gail. These items, floating alone in the vast ocean, were the only evidence of the ship's demise. The empty lifeboat was a silent confirmation that the crew had likely attempted to abandon ship in their final moments, but had been overwhelmed by the storm's fury. The discovery of the debris marked the end of the search for Andrea Gail. Despite the extensive efforts by the Coast Guard and other rescue teams, no trace of the 6 men was ever found.